Hi, I'm Kent.
And I'm Anna.
We're married, we make movies, and we believe that anyone in any circumstance can make a feature film.
Welcome to the Feature Filmmaker Podcast. If you want a career making movies, you're in the right place.
Hit subscribe to never miss an episode.
Let's jump right in. All right, welcome to the podcast. This is take 2 of episode 89. So we actually recorded the whole podcast episode, and we always check our mic before we record. We do like a testing 1, 2, 3, make sure it sounds good. And today we forgot to do that. And of course, when we finished the whole recording, really good episode, by the way, hopefully we can match it. We went to listen to the audio and my mic was slightly unplugged and it just sounded terrible. I don't even know what happened, but it wasn't a good connection. So this is take 2, and maybe we'll be even better and more succinct this time. But we want to talk about how you support yourself financially while making feature films and a few other things along those lines of especially getting your career off the ground for the first time before you eventually are making money as a feature filmmaker exclusively.
And as an added benefit to you, it'll be about 10 to 20 minutes shorter than the last episode
Maybe
that we
so.
recorded because I don't have the patience to record this again. So, Anna, I want to talk to you a little bit about why are we talking about this? Why is this a struggle to make the first feature film financially? Not just like raising money, but especially because first features are often under, if not completely unfunded, and yet they can be really wonderful and they're super, super productive in terms of, our film careers and whatnot. So because so few of us can get true living wages out of our first features, it's not like something we should expect to get a lot of money from, at least on the front end, because we can't command day rates in that world. What are some of the obstacles in your mind that you've heard from clients and that we've experienced ourselves to financially supporting yourself through your first feature?
Yeah, so first of all, before we even get to that, I do want to emphasize that 100% we believe that you can make a career making feature films where that's all you do and that's paying your bills. And that is the whole point of the Feature Filmmaker Academy, is to get you to that point. It's just the bridging the gap in between that becomes kind of difficult because you can't usually make that big of a leap right away. You have to start with smaller steps. And honestly, that is still the biggest obstacle I think that people face, is just in your mind, this mentality of trying to make too big of a step on your first film, trying to make that leap immediately into the end result that you want to reach. And so you're going to fall short, you're going to stumble, you're going to fall if you're trying to jump too far. But if you just take steps at a time, you can go far and you can do all of those things. In the end, it's just a matter of how do you get there? How do you bridge that gap? And so I think the biggest thing I see is people coming in and saying, I've got this great idea, I've done tons of work on it, I've written a screenplay, I've got a team, I've got shot list, whatever. They've done tons of preparation, and all I need is $5 million. And then we're ready to go. I can totally do this. And that's great.
I think that's rare, by the way, that anyone's gone. It's actually rare that anyone takes the project that far. Usually they're waiting for the $5 million way before they need it. But for the sake of discussion, let's assume that they've got everything done short of raise $5 million.
Sure. And most people have varying degrees of progress that they've made, whatever that looks like. So they bring what they've done so far and they feel confident up until that point of getting the funding. And so, yeah, they teach us a way to get money in film school that does work once you're an established filmmaker. So, yeah, get a name actor attached, and then a studio they come with a minimum guarantee, and you can take that to the bank, and there's methods that you can use that will work, but they don't typically work if you're a first-time filmmaker. Name actors don't want to work with first-time directors, almost ever. Now, doesn't mean you can't reach out and try. You can, but first, get some funding and be prepared to make the movie for a smaller budget. And then if a name actor comes on and you can raise more funds, great. You just can't plan on that. And so I think mentally first, we need to take that first film and just I don't want to be a dream crusher here. You absolutely can make a first film. It's just people are trying to get to this point so fast and so expensively that they actually don't get there at all.
Yeah, they want to get to this point. What you're saying is like to the point where they're making money off of feature filmmaking in a way that they can pay off their mortgage, kind of a thing. But even $5 million is kind of considered a lower budget when you're working like with unions and stuff, you know. And so the first feature film is totally makeable, but you know, something that we've seen a lot is that because the first feature film has to have X dollars behind its budget, it's not dream crushing. It's not like we're telling you to slow down. You're actually slowing yourself down, because a lot of people will sit on a movie for 5 years and say, all I need is the money. Any day now, you know, and they'll sit there and work the phones and email and network and put stuff out and make shorts all day. And shorts are great. I think I recommend making short content. But until you've made a feature, people aren't going to give you that kind of money 95% of the time. And there's no way to know if you're an exception. There's no secret formula unless you build up a huge audience another way, which you can do. That'll also take 5 years, you know? It's like,
well, and even if you have this belief that if I just meet the right person with enough money who believes in me enough, even though I've never made another film to show for myself, then I could make this as this amazing debut film. Let's say that you do that for 5 years and it works, and you eventually find someone with that much money who's willing to invest in you. You'll still be a better filmmaker 5 years later if you'd actually been practicing making feature films that whole time.
And the way you met that person was making 2 small indie feature films as opposed to networking and emailing, like to your point.
Well, and your chances of meeting someone who will invest in you go way up as soon as you've made something.
Yeah.
And often they don't even see what you make. It's just the fact that you're able to make a feature film from start to end and that you're competent enough to handle that. And honestly, I think that mental gap that we're trying to bridge is where most people get stuck. And so if you can lean heavier on the side of like, I could make a feature film tomorrow. Literally, you could. You could go today and roll your phone camera for an hour and a half and make a 90-minute movie. You don't even have to edit it if you don't want to.
And the credits would be short.
That would be easy. Yeah. And there you go. You're a feature filmmaker. That alone is something that most people can't say.
And then you could sell your iPhone and you would actually have made a profit already. You'd be a profitable professional feature filmmaker.
And then tomorrow we can scale from there, right?
And I bet you could even convince people to buy that feature film.
I'm sure you could get a few people to watch it.
You know, if you actually just vlogged it the whole time, like a 90-minute vlog, and walked around your house recording it, or you didn't like necessarily vlog it, like you got like one of those Insta 360 cameras or something that kind of auto paints out the pole or something, and you just walked around and did that for 90 minutes and like rummaged around your house. Oh man, it'd be like a you could sell that to a museum as like an art installation. You could make thousands. You know what? We're gonna do it. That's a good idea. Anyway,
the point is that there are movies you can make right now, and that you have the resources right now to make something and to practice, and that you're going to grow more as a filmmaker by doing that.
Sorry,
Why are you laughing?
I'm still having ideas about this 90-minute movie that you make in one take. What if it's a hike? Just a 90-minute hike. People do that all the time. It could be fascinating. There's all sorts of character there. No, don't steal my idea, listeners.
Look, you can do it. It's fine. But here's the thing. Most of us want to make something that's a little more thoughtful than that. And that's okay. But I'm just saying, lean a little more towards this side of what can I make right now with the resources that I have, and scale from there. I want to be a feature filmmaker. I'm going to become one by practicing making feature films. That's what feature filmmakers do. So if you want to be a feature filmmaker, you make feature films. That's how you become one. I know that sounds like maybe kind of obvious, and yet most of us aren't doing it. We're trying to become one by trying to get money. That's not how you become a feature filmmaker. And so scale back. I mean, or just keep your idea as big as it is and just wait and say, I'm going to make a few other things first. I'm going to make a proof of concept. I'm going to make something that shows what I can do right now, and then I grow from there. And that's kind of the process that we teach. So that was a bit of a tangent, honestly, but I think it's important to know that, first of all, it's possible. It's possible for you right now, where you are. There are people who don't have as much access to resources as you, are not as smart as you, who maybe don't have as many ideas as you, who've made feature films. So,
or they made them 10
totally
or 20 or 30 years ago when they had way less technological democratization and resources available to them. Once again, way more limitations. In modernity alone, we can shoot 4K ProRes imagery out of our new iPhones, and you can get those on payment plans from T-Mobile or whatever with your phone bill. It's like so democratized, and you can actually get decent imagery out of a camera that fits in your pocket.
That's how they shot Tangerine, which is what it's known for. It was the same director who did the Florida Project and other bigger films later. So I haven't actually seen that movie, but I've seen the trailer. It was shot on a cell phone. Honestly, to me, it doesn't look great. Maybe it is. I haven't given it a try, but the point is, most feature filmmakers' first films don't look that great, and most people don't see them or even know that they exist.
And by look that great, you mean visually or just like overall?
Both.
Yeah, usually both.
Yeah.
Some look nice, but like visually. But yeah, most have core struggles in some department, whether technical or usually narrative or performative or something. There's something that's, but ultimately they all do they do their job. They don't have to be perfect. And I think that's something we've talked about a lot, is this idea of like not needing to make it amazingly good, because we have to be bad at things before we're good at things. But the first feature always puts us in the next, it always up levels our careers and puts us closer to making a career out of it, where we're actually paying our bills and supporting ourselves financially. But until then, the first feature itself, what are some ways that you feel like, some things that make it fiscally feasible to actually complete it when we're not getting a ton of money, or usually any money, to make the thing in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, we can teach you to raise some financing, but it's not going to be enough to live off of. You're going to need all of it to make the best film that you can, which I assume you'll want to do. So we always recommend that you keep your day job, keep something that's a support system. How you're supporting yourself now, you can continue to support yourself that way and make a feature film on the side. And there's this idea of like, what does it mean to go all in? I think that some people think that going all in means that you let go of everything else. And so you stop doing your day job, you give up on every other area of your life and sacrifice it all for making this one project. But actually, I think that puts you in a bad spot where you're not able to take risks financially or otherwise, take creative risks, because the stakes are so high. So the example that comes to mind for me is someone on a tightrope. If you're on a tightrope and there's a safety net or a trampoline or something below you to catch you if you fall, then you're going to be a lot more free to try something expressive, to do a trick, to do something scary, because if you fall, you'll be okay. And you don't want to fall, but if you do, you're still going to be okay. So you're not selling your house and being homeless, to make this happen, or taking risks where you can't afford to, getting tons of credit card debt. I don't recommend methods like that. Can be pretty dangerous. But if you keep a day job, if you keep your life, then that's going to inspire more creativity and take the pressure off so that you're able to take those creative risks and actually make something better.
And usually what happens is, sometimes people who do sacrifice everything on the altar of the first film and of the film gods in general, usually their first and second films are really successful. but then they've nothing else to make movies about because they've severed off their lives and their livelihoods, not just their livelihoods, but their lives, their relationships, their higher values, and then all of a sudden they start to burn out. There's really nothing to make films about. Or they just have tons of money and they hire scripts from screenwriters who do have lives, which sometimes that works out just fine. So maybe you can try that route if you'd like. But I feel like, this is about financially supporting yourself, but emotionally and almost, spiritually supporting yourself throughout the first film sets a pattern for, and sort of an MO for subsequent films, in that you will be able to continue to make films that are actually thoughtful and really meaningful. Like you said, it's not about going all in, it's about putting it all in. Like, you put what you're learning through life and what it's like working, I don't know, maybe you're freelancing as a filmmaker, or maybe you're working a day job, maybe you don't have any filmmaking experience, maybe you're going through a difficult breakup, maybe you have a spouse and tons of little kids, whatever that is. It's like you can put all that perspective into really unique storytelling, and whatever combination of circumstances and experiences that you have, that's going to fuel great creativity, and it's going to be really meaningful to people. And that can also manifest itself in genre films. I'm not saying that all of it has to be domestic drama. It can be whatever you find to be energizing and creative. But the point is that you can do that over and over and over again if you keep things together, as opposed to throwing it all out. Like you said, maybe you have a day job, but you might have other means of supporting yourself. Like, we're freelancers. We have a production company, and that has its advantages and disadvantages, right? Because like when we're not working, if we're not earning, we don't get quote unquote paid time off, right? So there's pros and cons, but regardless, feature filmmaking is possible within any of those circumstances.
Yeah, what do you think, what would you say to people who are trying to get there through kind of a roundabout way, like, oh, I'll just make really big commercials and then become a feature film director, or I'll make it as a wedding videographer and then I'll move into feature films. Do you think that's productive?
Yes and no. I think that all of those routes can work. I guess I have two thoughts. The word then, I think you could replace with and. Like, oh, I'll do this and then. I mean, that could work. And honestly, like, there's people like Mark Toya, for example, who made it really big in commercials, and then he made his own film and funded it for like $1 million. So is he an exception? Kind of. I mean, but at the same time, not really, because he took decades building that up. So once again, it's like, or you could do it at the same time. Just don't make a robotic, explosive action film for $1 million with like a semi-name actor in it. Just make something simpler, but better even. Like, try and make a great story. I'm not saying his movie's not a great story. I've not even seen Monsters of Man. You can check it out and tell me. But you can, strong concepts don't have to be expensive. Great screenplays don't have to be expensive to produce. And I guess the second thought I have on that is that no matter what point in your career you decide to start making films, you're either going to have to do it concurrently with what you're doing right now, or you're going to have to make a hard right turn and pivot. And what pivoting does is it cuts off all the money you're making. And so if you're like, I'm going to make commercials, or I'm going to work this day job that's really great, or I'm going to do this other thing, and then at some point I'm going to stop and start making features, you're going to watch your income plummet. Now, you can build that back up as you build your feature film career, but feature films take a very long time to finish, especially if you don't have a lot of money. And even if you have a lot of money, sometimes it still takes a decent amount of time. And so you can do it then, do something else, then make feature films, or you can do something else and make feature films. And I feel like it's a smarter thing to make the film you're not getting paid for while you're getting paid to do something else. And it takes a long time, but when you're done, you're in a much better position to pivot, because now you have some portfolio. And I know that sounds silly, because portfolio is kind of overrated sometimes, but there's also, you have a ton of education, you have a ton of knowledge, you have qualification, and you have a ton of mistakes under your belt that okay, on the next film, I know exactly how to get it funded. I'll get it funded twice as fast. I know how to write a better script. I know how to shoot better, edit better. I mean, if you're doing those jobs, or if you're not, you know how to get the better people because you know what you're looking for now. You have made all these mistakes, and you'll be able to combine them into this huge course on feature filmmaking that you're going to bring with you in your mind on your next project. And then if you pivot, you might be able to raise more money. You might be able to raise enough money to pay yourself. You might be able to sell the movie in a way, or distribute it, or self-distribute it, or find buyers, or have contacts with sales agents or festival curators, because you worked and fought and failed on this first one, but you built up your network and your experience and your education. Now, if you pivoted, you could actually potentially survive financially. That's rarely the case on the first feature.
Yeah. So it really doesn't matter what work you're doing to support yourself while you make your film. In some ways, like you said, it may be beneficial if you have a job that's somewhat related to film, so you get to practice. But regardless, you can be practicing in your spare time, and you can be making a feature film with that spare time and with the resources you have. And you could be doing a day job that's completely different. That's fine too. Sometimes that's really nice because it makes it very easy to separate work and passion, and to kind of direct all your creative energy into the passion projects and not be exhausted by the end of the day of doing film or doing creative stuff. So there's affordances and limitations to both. But yeah, I would just say keep it all and keep moving forward, and a little bit a day adds up really fast, faster than you'd think. And yet, as soon as you can start making a feature film, it is different than making shorts. Shorts are good practice. They are good to do. But a feature film is, if that's what you want to do, and you practice that, is going to give you the best film education you could ever get. Now, we're all for film school and education and learning as much as you can, but learning all that stuff in your head and never applying it is not going to be useful to you. And so go out there and apply it. And a lot of the case studies we've studied of big directors and how they get their start is exactly this. They are working day jobs. They're doing this on weekends. They're doing it in their spare time with their friends, with whatever they have access to as far as equipment, as far as people to help out in hands and locations, things like that. And you can make something good within those creative restraints, and that can actually be part of what makes your work so interesting and part of the freedom of it. Something we also have thought a lot about is how creativity best functions. I think that a certain amount of constraint is healthy for creativity. There's nothing to be creative about if you don't have any problems to solve. If you have endless money and endless resources, it's actually very hard to be creative. At the same time, if you are expecting too much out of the creativity and you're putting tons of constraints and tons of pressure on yourself, which by trying to take too big of a step at first, you are doing that. You're giving yourself more constraints the first time around. You could actually crush creativity that way too, by saying, this has to support me, this has to make millions of dollars, this has to be a perfect production, my debut film has to be amazing.
Isn't that interesting? I think that's really interesting that you would call those constraints.
Yeah.
But they are. It's like, I won't make it until these circumstances exist. But you're right, like, that is sabotaging your career.
They're unnecessary constraints
It's like saying
you're putting on yourself.
That's like someone going into the corporate world and saying, I will not accept a job for under $200,000 a year. And it's like, or you could work jobs and work your way up to that, but on what planet do you expect to get paid that on your first job? You know? So yeah. It's we do this for some reason as filmmakers. We're like, I have very little experience in this, but I want $1 million budget, period. That's just what this requires, and I dream big enough I can make it happen. Sometimes dreaming big enough is working hard enough, and working hard enough is make a feature or two before that one. You know, so yeah, that is dreaming. Mm-hmm. You know, that is sort of the undaunted perspective, not just sitting there and demanding it of the world and the universe, I guess.
Well, and I helped out at a church girls camp this last summer, and we were talking about in the scriptures when it says that with faith you can move a mountain. And kind of like what you would imagine moving a mountain to look like. And I think that for me, what comes to mind is like you say, lift up and the mountain lifts and moves all on its own, when actually it may be get a shovel and start moving that mountain one scoop at a time. And in the same way with a film career, if you're trying to do something grandiose and huge, it may actually be impossible. But if you're trying to do it a step at a time and move closer to it every day, it is possible.
And it might be bigger than you realize. And at the end of it, you might go, whoa, we made this thing for not very much money, and it's pretty good. It might be significantly impressive, and that's what's going to lead to numbers 2 and 3 and 4, etc., in terms of feature films.
And it doesn't matter where you start, even if it doesn't turn out good, and it turns out to be garbage, and maybe only a few people like it, and it only makes a little bit of money, if any, but you scale each time. It's going to get better each time because you learned, and you can apply what you learned the next time around. Something interesting to talk about too is the idea that if you're in a hurry to get there, it's probably because you think your life will be better once you have that result. This can apply to feature films. It can apply to when you have money.
Any goal, yeah.
Any goal that you have. We have a tendency to assume that once I reach a certain goal, once I have a certain result, I'll be happier, I'll be more confident, I'll like my life better. And in some ways, it may be true that you'll grow as a person and you may learn to be more confident, for example. But for most people that I see who do reach these goals, and now I'm starting to have been on this earth long enough to see people become millionaires, to see people reach their dreams and have everything that they thought that they ever wanted, and they still aren't happy all the time. Really, still their life is 50-50, 50% challenging, 50% good. And those challenges change, but they're always there. And so I think that sometimes that idea is sort of discouraging if you think, well, why even bother? If my life's not going to be any better when I make a feature film and I'm really not going to be happier because I've become a feature filmmaker, then why even do it? And I would say that the main reason why is because you're going to grow so much as a person. And I think that's a huge part of why we're here, is to grow, to see what we're capable of, and to face new challenges.
And to become more capable, because we learn, and we need to learn. It makes me also think some people, for example, if you could be handed those circumstances, for example, it could all just be given to you. Lots of money to make your features with enough money to provide for yourself, and your debts are gone, and you're making movies for a living, and maybe even they're getting good reviews and people love you, but that could all be gone. And if that's where your confidence and security and joy is built on, then it's all going to be gone. And to your point, if you can learn confidence and joy and perspective before you reach those things and you move forward, then when you do accomplish something like that in your life, you actually have security. You won't have any security if that's where it's derived from, because you'll always secretly fear that it could be taken away from you.
You're actually dependent on it,
yes,
like a child.
Exactly. And so I feel like when you're allowed to grow into it, then you realize that it can all be taken away, and that doesn't diminish me as a person, because I had this before. I had the favorable circumstances, or the goal achievement, or the accomplishments, or the money in the bank, or whatever it is, fill in the blank. And also, when you get there, you won't be devastated by the fact that getting along with family is still hard, and getting along with coworkers, even though those coworkers are helping you make really cool movies, is still sometimes challenging. And
sometimes the same things are still challenging, and sometimes the challenges just change.
Yeah.
And it's maybe being confident in yourself as a filmmaker isn't a challenge anymore, but something else is. And so there's just always going to be that next level challenge for you.
And having a lot of money, or a lot of a big budget on a film, is also very challenging. It's high pressure, and Jason Blumhouse talks about keeping his movies $5 million and under gives them total autonomy and freedom. He's we can afford to be super creative and take big risks, and we can give our artists final cut. which like is very rare in Hollywood that anyone ever gets final cut unless they're huge hitters. But he's like, we have to give them final cut. He says, I don't think it's moral not to give the director final cut when they have skin in the game and they're working for scale. And so I think that's really interesting because it's this idea of like, he said in Hollywood there's so much ego where it's like, oh, the next one has to be more money, more money, more money. And he said, no, we will stay in this budget range. We will not work with A-list actors. Like, they are making thrillers for $5 million and under with studio backing. It's a unique deal. He's got that little corner of the market figured out. But the point is that it'd be so easy to say, well, what about 15 million? What about 30? I mean, our last movie made 200 million. What if we made one for 50 million? We're still way in the black. But he won't go there. He doesn't want to go there because then the pressure's too high. There's no creativity. And frankly, your ROI is not 200x. It's 4x. You know what I mean? Like, and so he likes to be able to play it in this totally different way, and it's proven extremely effective for him. 100 movies later and counting. I mean, that's a crazy career, but it's a principle.
Yeah. I like the way that my coach, Jody Moore, talks about this. She says, when you're starting a new business, it's like having a brand new baby. And, you know, sometimes we expect too much of our film careers too early. It's like expecting the baby to help with the dishes and to help bring in some money to pay for the food, and it's still just a baby. And so when your dream is young and your career is young, it requires a lot of investment. It needs you to take care of it until it can grow to be able to function on its own and even take care of you. And so trying to expect too much of a baby career will crush it, and it will disappoint you. But I think you're absolutely capable of making a career, and it's not when I get enough money, when I get enough time, when I can quit my job. It's now. You can make a feature film right now. And I think that once you can really believe that and do it and feel it in your bones, I am a feature filmmaker. That's what I do. That's what I'm doing every day. You will not be able to become one until you can get to that point. And it's really starting in your mind and starting in just that it's possible. I think that I probably wasted 7 years of my life waiting for something to fall into place for it to be possible, waiting for someone to give me an opportunity, wondering when I would be able to save up enough money, be able to have enough time to be able to make a movie, before I just realized that I could do it right then with the time that I have, though it was little, you know, though I have little kids, even though I don't have extra money, not very much to put into this. I can save what I have, I can put it together, and it adds up. And eventually you just keep moving forward little step by little step until you look back and you're like, whoa, I am a feature filmmaker. I've made it. It's, you know, just, it became inevitable. If you keep moving towards it, it's just like a map. You know, if you know where you're going and you keep moving towards it, you'll get there. If you're trying to make some big leap, you may not, but as long as you keep pivoting and focusing where you want to go and taking small steps to get closer and closer to that, you'll eventually get there.
You know, and it's relevant to this idea of how do you support yourself during your first feature film, because if you're expecting it to do that, you're obviously potentially going to be really let down. But if you're not expecting it to take care of you like a baby, that would be an unreasonable expectation, then you support it. And then you recognize, okay, I better go to work and provide for this child, you know?
Yeah.
And it's the same with like this film. It's like, okay, I have to have some way of supporting this. And that might be a day job. It might be leveraging other skills in a freelance capacity. So it doesn't really matter how. The point is that you recognize mentally that it needs some other form of support and nurture, you know?
Yeah, it's almost the difference, like as simple a difference as if I'm trying to get to California from here in Georgia, and I think I need to, like, get it on one tank of gas and one drive without stopping. That's impossible, right?
I mean,
I can't.
Probably.
I can't make it on one tank of gas. I can't make it without stopping at all to rest. But I can make it. I can make it there. It's just that you need support as you go. You need to be able to stop and fill up and stop and sleep. And sometimes you get held back by construction or traffic or car problems or whatever, and things slow you down. But you just stop for as long as you need to, get things fixed up, keep moving forward, and you will get there eventually. And so I think we've probably drilled the point pretty sufficiently, but I think that's the biggest obstacle for a lot of people is trying to make a jump that's too big too soon, when really you can get started right now and keep your day job, keep your family, keep everything that you're doing already that keeps you alive.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us on this episode. We hope it's been really helpful, and feel free to reach out to us at films@invisiblemansion.com if you have any questions or thoughts.
If you do want some help applying this to your unique situation and circumstances, I would encourage you to sign up for our free Greenlight call, where I can help you apply the process that we teach to your circumstance, because there's no two cases that look the same. It's going to be different for everyone, but we have lots of techniques and ideas to help you figure out what that looks like for you in your life right now. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us today. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, you'll love the Feature Filmmaker Academy, a program designed to teach anyone how to finance and finish a feature film.
There are many resources teaching you how to do a great job, but what they don't teach you is how to get the job in the first place.
You cannot have a career making feature films until you've made at least one. Anyone can make a feature film using our proven model.
It's risk-free. If you follow all the steps in the program, you'll finance and finish a feature film, or we'll give you your money back.
Learn more at invisiblemansion.com/feature filmmaker, or click the link in the show notes.
If you find this free resource valuable, we'd really appreciate it if you leave us a review or share it with another filmmaker. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.